Welcome to the Literature Lounge, where writers and authors share their stories behind their stories.
I want people to think about it. Who were you before this entire patriarchal world told you what to be?
Each of your books actually explores a very different facet of love, loss, or healing, all three different subjects. So, which of your protagonists has stayed with you the longest?
So, the very first story in my very first book is a story called Hamsafar. It's a love story, and the protagonist there is Geetika. I'm very proud of the fact that I create strong women. So, Geetika is also strong, like a lot of other protagonists. She's healed with a lot of grace. To me, that kind of healing is very important. I realize that there are so many stories of women waiting to be told, waiting to be crafted. So, gender affects every single thing. Gender affects our biology, then gender affects how a disease looks like, and gender affects how you access treatment. Do you have facilities for treatment? There are the percentage of women medical insurance beneficiaries much lower than men.
Welcome to today's episode where we sit down with a woman whose life sits at the crossroads of science, storytelling, and the human spirit. Shalini Mullick is a senior doctor and award winning writer and the winner of the prestigious IGF Archer Amish Award, one of the world's biggest literary prizes. And I am feeling so nervous now to have a conversation with her. Her stories move readers, her characters inspire courage, and her medical work grounds her in everyday realities most of us never see. Today, we will explore her world, the doctor, the woman, and the storyteller. Welcome, Shalini, in today's episode.
Thank you so much, Mawa. Thank you for having me here. And thank you for creating this lovely space for people like us. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So, you describe your identity as a doctor, a woman, and a writer as deeply intertwined, right? So, not parallel, which is really interesting. And I need to know this. So, what does this whole intersection look like in the ordinary day of your life, like your everyday? How does it really shape the emotional truth in your stories that you write?
So I think, we often say that we wear many hats, but it is the same head wearing all those hats, right? So for me, I cannot separate either of these, which you said, the doctor, the writer, and the woman. And I think that I'm reacting to every circumstance in three different ways. What I manifest at a particular moment depends on what I'm doing. For example, if I'm at work, obviously the work part of me responds and I do what is needed to be done for a particular patient or a particular situation. But there is a subconscious part of me which has reacted to whatever has happened as a writer and as a woman, and that is what comes home with me, and the next day in the morning, it finds itself coming out onto the pages. So for example, if I'm seeing a patient who's been neglected by her family for something, and they need better care, the medical part of me will be taking that very objectively in a very structured way. I'll explain what needs to be done. There's not much scope for emotion there, and then I'll come home and I'll probably use our license as writers of fiction, and I'll create a story around it and how the woman responded and how she overcame those challenges. And so for me, it's everything at the same time, and I think it seeps into us during work probably.
So each of your books actually explores a very different facet of love, loss, or healing, all three different subjects. So which of your protagonists has stayed with you the longest, and tell our listeners as to why they've stayed long with you?
So, the very first story in my very first book is a story called Hamsafar. It's a love story, and the protagonist there is Geetika. And why she stayed with me is because most of my protagonists are strong women. I'm very proud of the fact that I create strong women. So Geetika is also strong, like a lot of other protagonists, but she's healed with a lot of grace. She's endured whatever she had to during her life, her challenges, the ones which came her way. She's built a phenomenal life for herself on her own terms, but she's done it so gracefully. There's no bitterness in her. There's love, there's kindness, there's empathy. And I think that, to me, that kind of healing is very important. So she is easily my hands down favorite character.
So one more chapter features women who defy tradition, patriarchy, and inner fear. So what was that first spark that told you this book needs to be written?
So this, I mean, if you will pardon me, use the phrase, it wasn't a spark; it was a puljadi.
I love that.
It needed to be written. I mean, everywhere around me, I was, see, Mama, what happens, and you know this because I know you're a very strong woman yourself, and what happens is that when we go through challenges in our personal lives, when we face situations that we never imagined we would face, what happens is that it opens our eyes around to the fact that there are other people like us. And we realize that almost every woman's life is a struggle at some place. So I also went through personal challenges. I think at the age at which we are now, none of us has a life which is charmed, right? And then I began to think that there are so many different situations that women find themselves into. It could be an unhappy relationship, abusive partner. It could be simple discrimination in society, having to conform to patriarchal roles. And each woman finds her own way in different uh, methods, and she finds her own path. And my challenges are mine, my path is mine, no one will understand it. Yet the unifying thing is that all of us are struggling and coming through. So I began to identify, like, for example, there's a story about an AIDS patient. So when I would see women coming to us, who are, marginalized, that sets a spark for that particular story. Then I write about a woman who loves to ride a motorcycle, but she's not allowed to in the patriarchal world. So that came from a newspaper, news item. So, like I said, there were these puljaris, and I realized that there are so many stories of women waiting to be told, waiting to be crafted, and that's how this book happened.
Amazing, amazing. I love it. I love the fact that the Fulgari burst, and it came and gave us such beautiful work. So your readers say your stories answer questions that often we are very afraid to ask. So what are some of those really hidden, uncomfortable questions about womanhood, identity, or resilience that you wanted to bring to light?
That's a very, very, very thought-provoking question. I'd say that the most important question that I wanted, and I still want people who read the book, is to ask themselves, what do I really want? uh, how do I really want to handle this particular situation? Is this really me, or is this the me that the world forced me to become? And that's a very difficult question. It sounds very easy, when we say we want to go somewhere, we want to travel, we use the word want very lightly. I
Yes.
want people to think about it. Who were you before this entire patriarchal world told you what to be? And once you have just a glimpse of that, because it'll be a glimpse only in the beginning, uh, that's when all the other questions will become answered. So the question is not really what career do I want, because you're answering that within the patriarchal norms. The question is, if none of these burdens existed, what would I want? And then to get there. So for me, it was this is one question. And if I may, the second question was, I want people to think about, if from here I could write the rest of my story myself, what would I write? What would that next chapter be? Because there comes a moment in life when you realize that till now, the script of your life, all the chapters, were written mostly by other people.
Of course.
Right. And just that revelation is, it's a very complicated situation, but then you also have the power to think that, what if this doesn't have to be this way always? How would I write my next chapter? And that's actually why we gave it the title also, One More Chapter. So that's these are the two things I want people to really reflect upon.
Wonderful. So readers say that the book is a page turner, that makes you question like everyday things that we all take for granted. So was there really an everyday issue you personally began to see differently, after or while you were writing this whole anthology?
Many, because I've written about women from a very diverse background. I'm not all those women. I do come from a place of privilege. I mean, we are educated. We just the fact that we write in English, right?
Yeah,
We are coming
absolutely.
from a place of privilege.
Yeah.
So when I began to write about characters who either had different privileges or were not as privileged, I began to really understand the vastness of the human experience. So, in fact, I would say every situation I have begun to see differently because that is how they responded, not me. So yeah, and at work this happens very often because now I feel that I've become even more sensitive. I mean, we do have a tendency to in medicine to be paternalistic. In medicine, we do have a tendency also of sometimes rushing through things. But I do feel that I have now started thinking more of the person than the patient. In day to day life. So it's a reflection.
So Diwali Rush is a favorite for many readers, especially for its bold question. So how do we worship goddesses while neglecting the women around us? And I see that all the time. So how did this story really shape your own understanding of modern devotion, and gender? And they both come at such a crossroad.
Yes, they do. And it's how it shaped my understanding is that I've become, I've become a lot more aware now of uh, of the dogmas that have been perpetuated, especially with regard to mythology, how mythology sees women and how religion sees women. And I am now aware of a lot more hypocrisy than
Yeah.
I was earlier. I mean, I have to be honest. And of course, I'm not able to handle that anymore. I mean, if we're writing about women, we can't have that duality in us. So I've become I've never been a very profoundly religious person in with regard to rituals and things, but I've even cut back on those even more because most rituals I found were not gender equal. And so I've become religion for me has become more personal. It always was. Devotion has become phenomenally personal. I do not expect other people to understand my relationship with God or religion, uh, but I do also try and talk about the fact that religion, as it has been taught to us, is has not been gender neutral,
Not
and
at all.
not at all. And we need to keep revisiting it from the lens of the woman. Not
Yeah.
once. We need more and more writing out there. We need more points of views about the woman, about how she is seen and how she sees herself. So I do talk about it. I do write about it more. I hope to write about it and explore more.
Wonderful. We can't wait to read more. So, one more chapter is being widely read in book clubs. So, have readers' interpretations ever surprised you or revealed something that you probably hadn't even consciously placed, while you were writing the stories?
So that's a lovely question, and actually, that's why I'm sure you do too. That's why we all love book clubs, don't we?
Yeah.
Because the engagement and the perspective
Yeah.
it gives you. I mean, absolutely love book clubs, and I must add here that most of these book clubs are women reading, right?
Yeah.
And that brings another great energy to the whole conversation. So yeah, not one specifically, but lots of times I do get a very unexpected response, especially with Diwali rush that happened. A lot of people told me that we've never viewed, a religious figure in that way. What would that religious figure be thinking? Like you said, we worship them, but we don't even respect women in real life. So that was a huge one. One story that really elicited a lovely response was again the story of Rima, the one who does the motorcycle Maut Ka Kuan. Because there was this lady who told me that, I mean, she came from some place in Madhya Pradesh, and she said that I just read about this in the newspaper. Like I just read about a woman biker doing this. And she said that, in their town, they actually used to have this and women were not allowed to participate. And so they used to disguise themselves as boys and take part. So I was very surprised to find that resonance, coming there. So these are mainly, but readers surprise us with their interpretation of
Yeah,
people.
absolutely. I
Sometimes,
agree with you.
and also not just it's not just a different interpretation. Sometimes it's a very personal connect. Also, I'm sure that happens to you also. So, like for example, in Stars from the Bottle, let's say when again Gitika's story. So Gitika has she was in a relationship with an army officer before her marriage, and they remained in touch. So someone just wrote to me. I used to know that person, through someone, and they had my WhatsApp number, and they just wrote back and they said, Shalini, I wish I had a shaker in my life. And that just says everything. So you get all kinds of responses from readers.
Yeah.
And
I
that's
do wish I had a shaker in my life.
yeah, all of us. I think I also wish, that's why I wrote him there, right?
So, you specialize in respiratory pathology in a country where lungs really carry the burden of pollution, tuberculosis, and inequity, right?
Yeah.
There is, I mean, it's frightening. It's almost dystopian, actually, now that I look at the world. So, how is it looking at illness, under the microscope, shaped the way you look at society at large, and especially women? Because most women tend to keep quiet about illnesses that they have. I kept quiet when I had an autoimmune disorder. I tried to keep it down as long as I could till it, like, broke all bounds and came, banging out. So please share that with our listeners.
I think that's a very important question, Mawa. It's not, this intersection of gender, medicine, and health. It's on my mind. It does not go away. It's like completely seeped into my system now. So as you said, one, there's social inequity. When you're talking, let's talk about tuberculosis. I mean, pollution is a different thing, but we'll come to that. So the one, there is social inequity. You're already talking about a disease which is more common in the marginalized, and then among
Yes.
the marginalized, we all know that women are more disadvantaged. So
Absolutely.
how does, so now this is just the theory behind it, but how does the practical part pan out? The practical part pans out just the way you said. Women will be brought later. Young women will almost never be brought to the hospital because it will affect their chances of being married. And hence they will get treatment late and they will suffer from more complications. And I'm not saying this I'm not pulling this out of my hat. There is data. All this is documented things which need to come out into the world. And I'll give you one more example. For example, the government has a system wherein every patient of tuberculosis is given financial aid. I don't remember the amount. It's either 500 or 1,000 rupees a month. The idea is to get them a better diet, and this is linked to their bank accounts. Now, this is fact one. Fact two is the percentage of women having bank accounts in India is much lower than the percentage of men. So, who gets that benefit? You're understanding? On her behalf, it will go to someone in her family if she does not have the bank account. Then, how much or how little agency does she have? Does that money actually benefit her? And there are people doing studies on this. Again, this is my thought. Like you said, how has this affected me? So now I think from that perspective. And then I read, like I said, now there are actually studies going on in the field about this, about how much benefits are received or not received basis the gender. So gender affects every single thing when
Yes.
it comes to health. Gender affects our biology. First of all, of course, some diseases like autoimmune are more common in women. Then gender affects how a disease looks like. And gender affects how you access treatment. Do you have facilities for treatment? Can you avail treatment? There are the percentage of women medical insurance beneficiaries is much lower than men. So how will that healthcare be equitable? You can open a hospital and offer treatment to both. But if the woman cannot reach there on her own, it's not accessible, right?
Shalini, my heart breaks, when I hear and I know that we are so privileged at a certain level, but there are so many women out there who have no access to healthcare, and I mean, it's layered and it's really crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, as a senior pathologist, you teach and mentor young doctors. So what are the biggest mindset changes that you hope that the next generation of healthcare professionals will embrace?
So I overall this again maybe slightly lots of people keep saying we have no, I mean, the current generation, blah blah blah. So I actually think they're doing very well.
Yeah, me too.
Honestly, given
Yeah.
given their own set of circumstances, I find them very committed to things they believe in. The one thing that I would really like to see them embrace is, you know um, uh, to have the concentration span, to have the tenacity to continue whatever they take up, because they have a lot of energy, they have a lot of information, and they're very well positioned to do a lot of things, to bring about a lot of change. But at the same time, it's the age and the times that they live in. Sometimes they take up projects which are, the passion projects have to go and become the pet projects, so I really hope to see that tenacity, and I think it will come. I'm very positive with the new generation.
Yeah, me too. I'm also very positive because I think, they are going to inhabit a world that's going to be a lot more, equitable than what we inherited and our mothers inherited, you know.
Recognize the inequities. We didn't
Yeah.
when we were that old. That's
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're working on both fiction and non-fiction projects, so how do you really switch between these two different creative mindsets? I mean, I'm struggling because I'm writing a fiction book right now, and I've only written non-fiction till now, so the imaginative and the investigative, without losing really the voice that you have. How do you do that?
it's very difficult, like you said.
Yeah,
And at a time, like, I mean, on the same day, I'm not working on both. We work in bits and pieces. So
yeah,
I'll do the draft of the fiction, then maybe come back to some chapters of the non-fiction. I really can't, even on a weekly basis, I won't be able to switch, because it's that whole creative side versus that
yeah,
research side. So it is very difficult, but at the same time, it's also a challenge, don't you think? I mean,
yeah,
to try something new and go beyond.
yeah.
So, yeah, but how I deal with it is like blocking maybe months, or maybe that I'll do 4 chapters of this and then come back. Sometimes I do, if I've done a draft, I'll send it to a beta reader and then work on the other manuscript. So
Oh, wonderful. So, as a doctor who writes about strong women, have you encountered women patients whose strength has really stayed on with you and also been an inspiration for your stories?
absolutely, absolutely. Some of the examples are of strength, but they're also so heartbreaking, like you said. So, and this happens very early to us in medicine. When we are interns, the busiest place is the maternity wing in a government hospital, and that's where you see women struggling and women surviving. We've seen instances, and this is any doctor, Maua, will tell you this. We've seen enough and more instances when a wife needs a cesarean section and the husband will just disappear because you ask him to donate blood. Um, the daughter being born is a scenario which is very distressing. So, amidst all this, we found examples of strength. There was this patient who had her third or her fourth daughter, and she was trembling, because she knew that her mother-in-law will come and visit her, and it's not going to be a nice scene. And this girl's mother just stood up and she told her daughter that, if your in-laws trouble you, if they harass you, just come back home. It's a very big thing for a woman from an underprivileged thing to say, but those kind of things stay with us. So what has stayed with me, what these kind of examples are, again, of women who show tremendous strength, uh, and they support other women with that tremendous strength,
Yeah, 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 absolutely.
isn't it?
It's heart wrenching, it's because you hear these stories of, female infanticide, and it's really mad, So between being a senior doctor, a mother, and a writer, so how do you protect really your creative time without guilt, and or do you feel guilty?
Oh, all the time. All the time.
Me too. I used to. Now I'm totally free because my son no longer lives here. He's, outside.
Yeah. So completely, the day, I don't think, if there'll be a day when I don't feel guilty, I won't know what to do with myself. Probably, it'll be such a unique feeling. But yeah, that is also a learning curve. You keep telling yourself that I'm not, you know, I'm not neglecting my children, I'm not neglecting my home, my family, I deserve this. And honestly, it sounds very simple, but there are days where I have to tell yourself this even 4 times a day. And the bottom line is honestly that a happy and a fulfilled woman, or a happy and fulfilled mother, is actually better for your children than someone who's not happy, someone who's dissatisfied, someone's not her full self. That is one. The second thing is, I think it's very inspiring for children to see, um, when their mothers go out there and
Yeah.
what they can achieve. So that's something that I keep reminding myself of, that this is all, in a way, it's all for the kids.
Me too. I also keep telling myself this.
Yeah, but guilt is a part of our life. Even though we know we should not feel guilty, it's very strange. If you don't feel guilty, then you'll feel guilty for not feeling guilty.
Yeah, I agree.
So guilt is like, I've given up. I know it'll stay now. I don't. aa jao, join the gang,
Join the party.
join the party.
So, if women carry one message, from one more chapter, what do you hope that it should be?
You can always write your next chapter. It's not picture, okay. Picture abhi baki hai mere dost. You, the next chapter is yours. You can write it the way you want. It's not over till it's over.
Amazing. Picture अभी बाकी है मेरे दोस्त एक और chapter लिख सकते हैं. So thank you so much for joining us today for this powerful conversation. If today's episode for our listeners have made you reflect, question, or feel seen, make sure to pick up one more chapter and explore these unforgettable stories for yourself. Don't forget to follow, share, and leave us a review so we can bring you more inspiring stories and voices every week, like how we do. Until next time, keep reading, keep questioning, and keep writing your own story exactly like how Dr. Shalini Mullick does. Thank you, Shalini, for being on today's episode.
Thank you. Complete pleasure.